Welcome to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss business, leadership, and friendship. I'm Zach Gable.
And I'm Jared Toach. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to our podcast. And this one's going to be a little bit different today.
Yeah, and not just because we have hard hats on, or we're both wearing our glasses today.
We are, yeah. It's been a long few days.
It has been.
Contacts. I actually figured out I had 1.5 contacts in my left eye yesterday.
Oh, so yeah, one was torn out.
That's why I'm
nice.
Wearing glasses today. Give my eyes a break. Welcome back, everyone. And it's Father's Day weekend. Hope you all are having a great weekend, spending time with your family. And we are back. We are actually in our new studio. How's it look?
Beautiful.
Well, not great. But it's coming along.
Be awesome.
Yeah, it's coming along. We are excited and putting up drywall. We started drywall here last week, I think. And so we are plugging away at it, getting it prepared. And we wanted to do a special podcast here in the half-finished studio and talk about construction, kind of.
Yeah, we're going to talk about construction. We're going to talk about how you wire a place up, how you install drywall or how you don't,
and then how you measure, and then how you use fire extinguishers whenever the wiring's bad.
Yes, because Jared did the wiring. Yeah.
No, we are. We wanted to talk a little bit, and this will be kind of a shorter one because of just the chaos of our lives recently, but we're looking forward to getting back on track with the podcast and releasing podcast every month again. So anyway, as you can see, we've had a lot going on, but today we wanted to talk about construction and liken that to leadership and how, as a leader, we need to always be under construction.
Yes. Agreed.
And construction, there's a lot that goes into it. And,
absolutely. Agreed.
More than just hard hats, which, by the way, we've never worn these while we were doing construction, but
probably. But we thought they were really cool, so we had to have some hard hats.
But so, Jared, as we talk about this in Lycan, and by the way, it is very hot in here.
It is very hot.
Insulation is being installed this coming week, and so yeah, I will probably be pouring sweat by the time this is finished with. But anyway, so Jared, let's liken the construction to leadership.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things I think for us as leaders to always think about and to see is that we're always in the process of improving. So we're always in the cycle of improving, reevaluating our leadership. We're always growing and we're always under construction, basically.
Yes.
We're always a work in progress.
Yes.
Sometimes people would call you a piece of work, Well, actually, in some ways, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's not a bad thing because, yes, depending on the
context of
the conversation, but honestly, I feel like as a leader that I'm always improving.
Yes. And should be
improving.
Yes.
Sometimes it's under great, I don't know how to say this, under great duress or under great resistance from myself. I don't always want to, because it may sometimes improvement's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm going to continue to grow and be effective in my role and in my leadership, that I have to be willing to embrace that I'm going to be always under construction.
Yeah.
My work, how I interact with people, my day-to-day leadership is always going to be under construction.
It's how you said, kind of under duress a little bit. There have been many challenges during this process, and it's a lot larger process than what you can see here in this camera. Right. But there's a lot that's been going on in here. And there's been a lot of blood. There's been a lot of sweat.
Not from me.
No tears yet, but those may come. There's been I hit my finger pretty good with the hammer the other day, and So there's growing pains
Right.
along with growing. There's when you're
And sometimes everything doesn't go as planned.
yes, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And that's when the under great duress, I guess,
yeah. So talking about the pains of construction, the pains of growing. So as a leader, obviously we don't want to be comfortable. We don't want to be
Right.
stuck. We don't want to get stagnant. And I may have mentioned this in a podcast before, but I remember a couple years ago, I had a meeting with our office staff, and I had seen a post on LinkedIn that was a picture of water that was empty and the glass beside it, and it said, "You can't pour from something that you don't have."
Right.
And so it was, likening to if you're not inputting into yourself, you can't.
You cannot give what you
Yes,
don't possess.
Don't possess. Yeah. And so, so anyway, that's something that I think about often. Actually, is if I'm not constantly growing myself and constantly trying to better myself. Now, this construction here is not necessary. It's going to be wonderful.
Yes, it is necessary.
It's going to be wonderful. Give us more space. Give us better lighting. Better, just completely better space.
A makeup studio next door, all that kind of stuff.
Makeup, yeah. No, we don't need makeup, Jared.
Oh yeah, we're great looking
So
guys.
this will be wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's not a necessary change.
Right.
And I wonder in our leadership as well, there are changes that we make that are necessary. There was a change a couple of years ago that I made that was necessary in my leadership that got me out of this realization that I was a horrible leader that did not know how to lead.
Right.
And so that was a necessary change. But then there's also been changes along the way that I've made that are just bettered a little bit. May not have been necessary, may not have been something that was a life or death change, but I believe in those changes as well that maybe are not necessary, but that better us along the way.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to being stagnant or lethargic, or I think stagnant's the best phrase I can think of right now. Is so when your leadership, maybe nothing on the surface, right? Maybe nothing on the surface appears to be necessary to change, but if I'm not willing to keep pushing myself to keep growing.
Yes.
You send a message to the team, the people that are around you, when you're constantly improving, constantly willing to grow and learn and all that kind of stuff, that it's okay to grow and learn, and I think we always should be growing and learning because it also provides, I think growth also provides the green light for error. Because growing and learning, you're going to have error, but then it also makes error not a bad thing. It makes it a positive thing. So
to learn from,
right? Because then you start seeing error as instead of negative, you see it as a growth point and a growth piece. Because then when you start getting into this concept, and I don't mean to be I feel like I'm going off a little bit of what we were talking about, but this concept of feedback. Having feedback in order to grow. If you don't want feedback, then you can't. You're not willing to grow and knowing. But then also giving yourself grace to have error and to grow and learn, and then giving those around you grace to have error and to grow and learn. And I think that's all part of construction. Yeah. And so it goes back to that, wrapping it back into that necessary or unnecessary. Sometimes maybe we don't see anything right away, but just be willing to challenge ourselves to something. Try something new, try something different.
Construction is funny because when you see a finished project, it's all clean.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty, it's neat. But when if you were to come look at what we're seeing right now, and actually we'll put a video up over. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll put a video up over us talking right now to kind of show you around a little bit, but. If you were to see what we're seeing right now, it's a mess. It's a mess. And I'm looking at all of the wiring. I'm looking at the holes that we had to drill into the studs to run the wiring. I'm looking at all the sawdust on the floor.
It is a mess.
It's a mess. I'm looking at the electrical boxes. That's one of the ones that I hit my thumb on with the hammer. and that did not feel well. And I'm thinking about the blood, and then the drywall that's behind us. Whenever I was hanging that, I had all the metal shavings in my fingers. It's not pretty. Construction is not pretty. Growth is not pretty. There's tough times. There are times that you probably don't want to share with everybody. Like, this is not something normally you don't see somebody doing a podcast in a messy construction zone. Jinx. So it's not pretty.
No, it's not pretty.
But then when you see the end result, and you see how it affects other people, and you see the space that it provides for people to grow and to be a part of what, because of the hard times and because of the tough times, what you've been able to cultivate and make the place into.
People and embracing the messiness is a choice. Right, because we can choose to, you could choose to say, like, you know what, we have podcast studios that we can use.
Yes,
people have given us that privilege. It's been great. Amazing spaces, right? And
shout out to Sean Collins.
Absolutely, thank you, Sean. And those would be phenomenal spaces, and would love to be in those studios again, right? And you can choose that, right? But there's something about creating your own space and creating the space, like it creates, like it's your space.
Yes.
And it's something that you've worked on and built on, and it's not been easy, but it's a choice. Like the construction part is a choice, just like as learning and growing. Like it's a choice that, that I have to say you made, because this is your property, but but that, that you make. So working on yourself is a choice. And I think that's important to understand. There's also this other element that kept rolling over my head. We have a choice to, and I use this term loosely, but critical of ourselves. So I think sometimes we say, I'm being critical of our work. We don't say you're critical of your work. No, actually, that's a good thing. Now, dehumanizing your work or dehumanizing yourself or making belittling yourself. No, that's critical in a negative sense.
Yes.
But I think it's important to be critical of our work all the time, and when you're in putting the studs up, putting the drywall up, like you have to be critical. Because it has to be right.
Yes.
If you want it all to line up,
blueprints.
You have to have blueprints. Yeah. So like being critical, analyzing your work, thinking about what you're doing, like it's important to grow. And so that's part of construction. And then if you think, if I'm growing as a leader, being able to be critical of my work, of what I'm doing, how I'm presenting myself to my colleagues, my coworkers, what does that look like, how I'm leading people? And it's a growth. It's about growth and a journey.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? I think, so here's another thing that I always have something to say. So like,
say it.
Yeah. I'm trying to learn to give people space.
By the way, we are trying to have Milwaukee be a sponsor for us.
Did I put anything else, Milwaukee?
If you know anyone that, we can go grab a bunch of tools and put them on our laps. If you know anyone with Milwaukee, this is a very intentionally placed item here that, they could sponsor our podcast. That'd be great.
That is totally unknown to me, but anyways.
No, I'm just
okay. But I think so when we're critical of our work but if we're know that we ourselves are under construction all the time and that we're always learning and growing, I think it's important then to realize that the people around us too are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. That's
maybe gives you a little bit more grace.
Yes.
Deal with situations a little bit more gracefully.
Yeah. It does, because you're learning and growing, and I think you have been very gracious to me in this process. So you and I have worked on various projects, and really, he's laughing because
I know where he's going with this.
So we've worked on various projects in the past before, quite a few actually. I would say that like over the years we've worked on various projects. This is probably the biggest one. Probably so. Yeah, I would say that we've worked on together. Maybe not the biggest one you've done, but the biggest one we've worked on together, and you've done more of the work than I have. But like I struggle with some of the construction. That's not my Like that's just not me. And he gave me lots of boards to measure. And let's just say maybe some of them weren't quite the right length.
Measuring and cutting, and it was
measuring and cutting,
but
like
it worked out.
It worked out. But he also, like, one of the most amazing pieces was he might have been cussing me in his mind.
I don't cuss even in my mind. It's fine.
I know. You might have been thinking lots of bad thoughts about me in your mind, but you were very gracious in the process of me learning and growing in this. And by the time I think, now you could say I'm wrong, but by the time we finished the upstairs wall, the short wall, my cutting was pretty precise.
It was.
And my ends were pretty straight.
Yeah. And so here's actually, this ties into not only what we're talking about, but also Father's Day. So shout out to my dad.
Mine too. I think he'll watch this.
I think and I think we even said this. I even said this whenever we were up there talking about the cutting and the learning and everything. I said, there's no telling how many boards that I cut wrong, or how many things I did wrong when my dad was teaching me, whenever I was helping him. And I'm thankful for that he allowed me to learn and allowed me to make mistakes and figure it out. And so at his cost,
Right.
And so I still make pretty dumb mistakes, especially in construction, because I'm not a professional by any means.
Definitely. I've called out quite a few of them.
There was one, I can't remember what it was, but there was one very specific one in here that I made a very dumb mistake, and as soon as I did it, I was like, that was so stupid. I had to go buy more boards. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, mistakes happen. Makes
me feel better.
And having that grace, just as my dad had grace with me and my brother growing up and teaching us, and then you're never too old to learn, Jared.
No, exactly. No, and I 100% appreciated that about you, giving me grace to continue to be under construction myself, to learn and grow. And so I think that's a part of leadership as well. When we look at other leaders around us, and when we look at other human beings in general, like giving everybody a little bit of space to grow and know that people, unless they've proven otherwise, like are really trying to do their best to grow and learn, and assume the best in people, and to realize that people are under construction themselves. And so I think, I can't remember the quote that I sent you via text message, but it was something about you don't want to follow you can't follow a perfect leader, because there's no such thing as a perfect leader. You want to follow somebody basically that's under construction all the time, that's always growing and improving. So if you are, if you have leaders in your life and you're like, man, like give them some grace to grow and learn. And then give your colleagues around you some grace to grow and learn, and know that we're under construction all the time. We're human beings.
I've learned over the years in business that it's much easier to work with someone who makes mistakes and is willing to learn from them than that someone is not willing to admit that they make. Everybody makes mistakes. If you're not willing to admit it, then you're not willing to correct it.
So here's the thing about that. I could walk into probably almost any culture and climate, in any workplace setting, and you give me enough time, a few hours in that space, and I could tell you very quickly whether or not grace was given for error and mistakes, and that the place was cultivating a culture and climate of continual growth and improvement. And here's why. When in those spaces, it looks like people coming to you and saying, hey, like telling you like very quickly, like, hey, I did this XYZ, like feeling comfortable to come say like, oh, I didn't quite get this paperwork right, or I made this mistake, or I didn't respond to this customer or this parent well, or I handled this situation with a child like not well, like, or with the family. Like I'm trying to like hit every possible industry, but no, you can, because then that rapport between the leader and the people who are following in that organization is one of like transparency and acceptance. In organizations where people don't share like their struggles, what they're struggling with, what they're having a hard time, you can almost guarantee, I would say 95% of the time, you can guarantee that it is not a place that cultivates being under construction
Mm-hmm.
as a way of being.
Yeah.
And
then
because
there's no growth across the board.
Yeah,
Like
there's no growth across the board, because what happens is people, because being under construction is viewed as a negative thing, and being in the improvement process is
you
viewed
should
as
have all the answers right now. You should know.
And sometimes those look like
that's a trap that some management falls into.
Yes,
is feeling that they
call
are
it the
supposed
write-up
to
trap.
have what?
I call it the write-up trap.
Okay.
They get written up for everything.
Yeah. Well,
you clock the wrong.
Yes.
You clock the wrong. You punch the wrong line on the clock, right? And please don't get me wrong. There's a difference between repetitive mistakes, like things that consistently happen, and so we've done some corrective action, like this is what you're supposed to do, and then the employee still doesn't do that, and just like automatic, like everything's right up.
On the other end of it, for managers, a trap that they fall into is that they feel like they are supposed to know everything. They feel like they're supposed to have
the
every
answers for everything,
and that's and if you create this
environment
and this scene that you are the hero and you know everything, number one, you're not allowing your team to grow, because they're just going to come to you for every answer, instead of if you walk them through how you're going to figure the answer out, then they will learn, this is how we figure this answer out. And so not only are you growing as a leader, but your team's growing.
Yeah. And as a leader, that is very hard, especially if you've worked in a variety of places, a variety of settings where that may have been strong or may not have been strong. That's a very hard moment to overcome. And I will say, in my current role that I'm at, we actually just had this conversation, because I was struggling in a recent meeting with trying not to have the answer. I was struggling, and I loved it because my boss was saying, she was like, I could see it all over your face. Like, you want it. And she said, I could hear it in your voice. You wanted to have the answer, but also there's this element of it's okay not to have the answer.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and it's wonderful to hear from my boss that I don't have to have the answer. Cause she was sitting in on the meeting, whatever. And I didn't have to have the answer for everybody. And we could either come up with it collectively, or I could say, I'll get back with you. I don't know, what the answer is. But it is a struggle. It's a struggle as a leader to get to that point of feeling that you don't have to have every answer.
Yes. But once you're there, there's freedom. You have such freedom to grow.
And then as a person who's working for that organization, or who has that leader that doesn't feel like that, they don't feel like they have to have the answer, embracing that as an employee. Because guess what? If they feel that way, that they don't feel like they have to have the answer to everything, and we can come up to a collective answer, then they probably feel that way about you as well, that you don't have to have the answer for everything. And so then the pressure should be relieved off of you.
Yes.
Because
it provides freedom in the workplace.
It provides freedom in the workplace, 100%. But it is, as a leader, it is hard to get to that space where you don't feel, and sometimes you will have people who work for you that feel like you should. But a part of that is our society, because everything's about having an answer for everything. It's less dialogue and discussion nowadays than and more about it's this way or that way. It's black or white. There's no dialogue or discussion. You either know it or you don't know it.
Well, how many times have we heard our pastor or other pastors say that if someone comes to them and has a question for them, they want an answer right away. They want something.
Well, how about we seek the answer out? How about we figure this out together?
Yes. Instead of just coming to him and
wanting somebody else, and that's you might call that part of a microwave generation or something instantaneous, right? But I think discovering things together builds collaboration. It fosters that piece of being under construction, embraces that part of being under construction. I would say if we would foster that in children, in our schools, in our homes, not to say you have no boundaries or rules, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not advocating for that. But what I am advocating is that you create places, cultures, and climates of places where inquiry is okay, and where we don't have to have the answers for everything, but we can inquire and figure it out together. Or maybe we do have the right answer.
Well, if you've ever been around a toddler, you know that you're never going to have all the
have the
answers
right
to the
answer.
questions.
Why? No, 100%. But I think it starts at a very young age, and it fosters that. It frames up your perspective of what the world should be,
yes,
and how people should respond.
Yeah.
And then I think it has the opportunity to send you in the direction of, I should be just perfect and I should be just right. And when I take this position at this organization as the head of whatever department, I need to be perfect and have all my ducks in a row and have everything. Instead
be the man or be the woman or be the one.
Be the leader. Yeah. Instead, it's like, no, I'm actually Jared and I'm the new leader of this department, and I'm going to make mistakes, and we're going to learn. I'm a human being, and we're going to learn and grow and do this together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Good stuff.
Well, I'm sweating.
I am too.
Part 2 on the way, or
sure, I don't care.
Depends on
how far along this is.
We are. Hopefully we'll be in here pretty soon. Windows are supposed to be in. Again, show you in the video on YouTube. We have some bay windows, or some whatever they're called. Some windows over there that'll look out into the tool room, and we have some lights being put in that we're putting in that are multicolor lights, and it'd just be really neat. Have a surprise for the wall behind us.
Awesome.
And things like that.
Exciting. So, I haven't even seen that.
Also, almost forgot, shout out to Chris. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
I did go into your office. He's our director of safety. I went to your office and we stole some hard hats out of your office. So thank you, Chris. You didn't know, but now you do. We will return them. I'll wipe the sweat out and everything. Well, thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Watching.
Have a happy Father's Day if this is released on Father's Day.
Yeah.
Or by Father's Day.
Yep. Playing on, this is the day before Father's Day, hoping to release it on Father's Day. So all right. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
And we will see you next month.
All right. Bye-bye.